Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. Recently, I did a live stream in which I responded to subscriber questions that had been submitted in, and some questions that were submitted during the live stream itself. One of the questions that had been submitted to me via Instagram was around sponsorship. And the person specifically wanted to know how it was that I went about getting sponsors for my channel. And while I answered that question during the live stream, I realized that I didn't answer it as fully and as completely, potentially, as I could have. So I wanted to record a dedicated video in which I offered up practical tips and pointers for how you can go about getting a sponsor. And my hope here is that there are content creators out there that are striving to get sponsorships and striving to make the hobby actually work for them. So it is in that vein that I offer this content up. And so I'm going to go through 5 tips and pointers along with a few bonus tips. And my hope is that this will actually help someone out there. And as always, what you're going to have to do with the things that I offer up is you're going to have to decide what makes sense for you, what you want to keep, what you want to discard, and what you might need to modify to make it actually work. Before I get to the tips, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the sponsor of this video, 9Panel. 9Panel is a digital marketplace for buying and selling raw and slab comics. Buyers on 9Panel are able to search for, browse, and purchase collectible comics from shops across the US, while sellers are able to manage their online comic shop their way with the support and security of the 9Panel team and technology. There is a link in the description of this video. I encourage you to check them out today. So one of the first tips that I want to offer up is that you have to think about what it is that you offer up to a potential sponsor. Technically, there are a lot of things that content creators offer sponsors. They offer them authenticity. They offer them a connection to the community or market that content creator is a part of, and that's important. To some degree or another, working with certain content creators actually gives an advertiser or sponsor a certain amount of credibility and legitimacy. But one of the most important things that content creators offer is an audience, literally eyeballs. Now, the big question here is how many of the people that are in that audience, in that subscriber base, will actually take some actions that are measurable and meaningful to a potential sponsor. So let's say that your audience is 500 people. More than likely, all 500 people will not see a video that you release on your channel. It's going to be a smaller percent. Still, a smaller percent of that group will actually take some type of action that can be measured by a sponsor, like clicking the link in the description of this video to check out 9Panel. Only a percent will actually do that. A smaller percent still will actually take a more meaningful step of buying something from that sponsor's website or app or whatever it happens to be. So again, let's say you have 500 people that are your subscriber base. Potentially, you're only going to activate about 10%. So 50 people will take that step of clicking a link. A smaller percent, let's just say 10%, will actually buy something from that sponsor. So you're talking about 5 people out of 500. Now, given those numbers, the question that you have to ask is, what are those 5 people that take that meaningful step actually worth? Because that's part of what a sponsor is going to evaluate. What do I do with these 5 people? How much revenue did that generate, and how much do I spend to generate that type of revenue? That's some tough math, but it is important math. So you have to think about that. Again, what is it that you actually offer? What can be tracked? What can be measured? What can be converted into something for that sponsor? Because the numbers actually do matter. This idea of monetizing content, I think, is a really important thing. And a lot of people, I think, struggle with this idea of how much to actually charge for accessing an audience. I recently had someone reach out to me that has a website and also an Instagram page and wondered how much they should charge to leverage their platforms to raise awareness for a potential sponsor. And what I recommended that they do is the same thing that I'm about to tell you, which is to access something called the Social Blue Book. Very similar to the Kelly Blue Book, the Social Blue Book is a platform that I used once upon a time. And it's a great platform because it allows you to determine what a rate is for creating content for a sponsor. A dedicated video, a mention, right? This platform will actually give you a dollar amount and a range as for what you should charge for, again, a dedicated video or a mention across multiple social media platforms. That's why it's called Social Blue Book. You take some time, you set up your profile, and you connect the Blue Book to your different social media accounts, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. It pulls in all of the information from your various social media platforms, and it basically tells you how much you should be charging for services based upon your audience and based upon your audience's engagement with your content. It really is honestly a wonderful platform. There are so many other bells and whistles that are on this site that I would probably need to create a dedicated video really to talk about all of them. But at its most basic level, this website will give you a ballpark for what you should actually charge for your content based upon your audience size, your audience engagement, et cetera, et cetera. And that gives you a starting point to start having a conversation with a potential sponsor. And the big question is, what will the sponsor do? How much can they afford? Do they do the math that I just alluded to in the first step? And if they do the math, is that a good number or a not so good number for them? But this platform is one that I recommend you at least check out. I want to say it costs about $19.95 for a single month. If you do a longer duration, of course, the price actually comes down. The third tip that I want to offer is to identify and prioritize potential sponsors. The best way that I could offer up for you to do this is to take a look at the products, the apps, the websites, the services that you are presently using and start there. The wonderful thing about doing that is that you don't have to pretend that you like those products. You don't have to pretend that you understand that platform or use that service if you're starting with the very things that you use already. And I think that that is a really great way to have some authenticity to what it is that you're going to do when you have that outreach to that potential sponsor, where you can legitimately say, I use your product. I like your product. I want to work with your company moving forward. Once upon a time, I approached a coffee company to do a potential sponsorship with me. And this was back in my fitness days. I approached them about this. And what the marketer did, as a savvy marketer, he actually went into his database and looked me up in the database to confirm that I was an actual customer. And you know what he found? He found that I had been purchasing coffee from this company for 10 years. He realized that I had been buying company for 10 years and could see my entire history of purchases across multiple states because I moved a lot and I took them from Florida to Maryland to California to Connecticut. I took them everywhere that I went because I absolutely love this coffee. And that made for a really wonderful conversation because he knew that I was authentic. He knew that I was a legitimate customer. He knew that I was passionate. He knew that I was putting my money where my mouth was. And it made it really easy for us to have a wonderful conversation. My point here is that it is really easy for you to work with and represent products, services, platforms, websites, whatever it might be that you already use. So start there, create your list, prioritize that list, and then start engaging. Part of the reason why I say that you want to prioritize, honestly, is because some companies can be very competitive. If you are going after a vertical, for example, so in the example that I just cited of a coffee company, let's say that I love Boca Java, but I also like Starbucks. I would have to decide who I was going to go to, because if I went to Starbucks, Starbucks might have some issues if I started working with Boca Java and vice versa. So you want to prioritize who you want to go after, because if you get it, that means that you may have to give up the other company that exists in that vertical space. Not every company is like that. Some companies don't care who you work with, but you really won't know until you start to dig in. So as you're identifying and prioritizing, you may also want to group your potential sponsors into their vertical categories. Supplies, from websites, from pricing guides, from grading companies, right? Whatever it happens to be, put them in their verticals, prioritize them, and then start going after your prioritized list first. Try to figure out whether you can make some magic happen there before you go to other players in that vertical space. So the fourth tip that I want to offer up is that you have to figure out how it is that you are going to engage your potential sponsors. One of the things that I always do is I craft an introductory letter. And the letter basically sounds the same for just about everybody. I change it up just a little bit to make it authentic to the person that I'm actually reaching out to, or the company that I'm reaching out to. But I never assume that someone that I reach out to actually knows who I am. So I always start off with, my name is Regie. I run a YouTube channel, and I am interested in working with your company to sponsor some content. Like, I put it out there. Here's who I am. This is what I want. And as part of that, I actually provide them with some metrics about my channel. I want them to know how many subscribers I have, how many people have joined the channel in the last 28 days, what my impressions are, what my views are, what my watch time is. I provide them with these analytics so that they understand, going back to tip number one, what it is that I actually offer them. On the other side, the marketer or the president or the CEO that might be receiving this communication is able to figure out whether I am somebody that they actually want to work with. So statistics are vitally important. One of the great things is that a lot of the social media platforms that are out there have great analytics. And so all you have to do is to go to the right panel, the right page, the right section, grab some of those data points, and then drop them into your communication that you send. The initial communication is really just the start of the conversation. It is the way that you engage with them. But then there's a lot more work that has to come after that, where you start to figure out, how do you want to work together? What it is that you actually want to do? How much are you going to charge them? What are you actually going to do for them? How are they going to measure success? Those are the things that come after the initial outreach, but that initial outreach is really important. It's important that you actually get it right, or else you won't actually get to the rest of the steps. So the fifth tip is to reach out and engage. So a lot of times I actually don't have contacts at some of the organizations that I reach out to. So I have to send that initial communication to info@company.com or marketing@company.com, whatever it happens to be. But I send that communication and then I wait a period of time. And sometimes I have to send a follow-up communication to try to get somebody on the horn. And I can tell you that a mixture of things have happened to me over the years. Sometimes I've done that outreach and I've been able to secure sponsors that way by reaching out. In some cases, I've actually had sponsors come to me, which is also a really good thing when people actually reach out to you and have a conversation. What I can tell you is that if you are familiar with the brand, it makes it a little bit easier to move forward than if you're less familiar with the brand. If you're less familiar with the brand, I think you have to do a little bit more due diligence to make sure that it makes sense. But either way, you have to do some work to figure out what it is that you're actually going to do for this sponsor, and whether you can deliver upon what it is that they actually want. Sometimes people just want mentions in videos. Sometimes people want dedicated content to be created. And that's why the Social Blue Book is really helpful for you to figure out what do you actually charge for a mention versus a dedicated video. It's really helpful to have those numbers because that allows you to have the back and forth to say, hey, my audience is this, my rate is this. Does that make sense, right? You also have to think about how much time is it going to take for you to create this content? So even if your rate is, let's say, $100, if what they are asking you to create takes 3 times the amount of time, then $100 might not be the right amount of money because time is money. So you have to have that back and forth. You have to understand what is it that they want you to create? Can you deliver that thing? Does the rate actually make sense for you? What does good look like for them? I think this is a really, really important thing. What does good look like? How are they going to measure and evaluate what you are actually doing? Do they know that what you're doing is actually a meaningful thing? I can tell you one of the things that I did for a sponsor that actually approached me. Instead of putting a long-term contract in place like they wanted to do, they wanted multiple videos. I said, nah. How about one video? How about we do one video and then we evaluate whether we want to work together, right? Because I didn't really know this company all that well. I didn't want to sign up for something and not be able to deliver. That's one of the worst things for me. So we agreed to do a single video. I created the video, I edited the video, I released the video. I then waited to see how the video performed. And then based upon its performance, I went back to them and I asked questions. Is this what you expected? Were you happy with the production? Were you happy with the comments and the views? Did you see a meaningful number of people come to your website? Was that good for you, right? I wanted them to tell me that what was done worked or didn't work. And if it didn't work, I wanted to understand, well, what does good look like in that situation? So by taking a stepwise approach, it allowed me to understand, is this a company that I want to work with? Is this a company that my audience is interested in hearing more about? And, do I want to do this? And based upon that experience, I decided, yes, I want to move forward. So we ended up doing more content together. And I think that they are pretty happy. I've continued to stay in touch with them. I've continued to have back and forth. I've continued to make tweaks and modifications based upon input. And I think that's also another really important thing is even if you have a contract set up with someone, you need to continue to check in. You need to continue to make sure that they're happy. You need to continue to make sure that you are meeting, if not exceeding, their expectations. But I think that the communication is vitally important, and it all starts with that initial communication, but then it definitely flows through into that back and forth all the way to signing an actual contract and then executing against that contract. And I have some people that I have deals with now that are nothing more than handshake deals. Some I have formal contracts with. It just depends upon the comfort level of me and them, right? But everyone's a little bit different. But the big thing is do your outreach, engage, have the communication, have the back and forth, do what makes sense. So up until this point, we've spent time talking about sponsorship. So dedicated videos and mentions, right? Basically sponsored content that is on your channel. But I would be remiss if I did not take at least a moment or two to talk about affiliate marketing. Now, there are a lot of YouTubers out there that swear by affiliate marketing. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan. And part of the reason why I'm not the biggest fan is that people don't always remember to click on the link in the description when they want to make a purchase. They will remember the brand, they will remember the URL for that brand, and they will go to that website and they will make that purchase. They won't remember to come back to your video to click the link so that you can actually get paid. And that typically is how affiliate marketing programs work. But there are a lot of affiliate programs out there and they are very different. And so you want to look to see what's out there. You want to look to see what actually fits and you want to move forward if there's something that is appealing to you. But affiliate marketing programs are a great way to monetize your audience. If you click the description of this video, you will actually see a few examples, depending upon the video, of affiliate programs that I am associated with. In some videos, you will see Amazon.com. In others, you will see StreamYard, which is the platform that I actually use to stream my live streams. In some videos, you will actually see TubeBuddy, and in others, BCW. All of these programs are very different. They pay different rates. Some pay whenever someone clicks a link and when they make a purchase. Some just pay when someone actually makes a purchase. And again, you want to see what's out there. You want to do what actually makes sense for you and for your brand. One other thing that I want to offer up as a cautionary note is if you are going to work with sponsors, you should be prepared for the occasional pushback from your subscribers. For whatever reason, subscribers on YouTube are not always favorable towards sponsored content. And so you want to be prepared in the event that there is a little pushback. And that's why making sure you have a good fit with a sponsor will allow you to tell a good story, will allow you to explain to your audience why you are working with this company. And if you're able to do that, then potentially you will be able to negate some of that negativity. With that said, I'm going to wrap this video up. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope there was something that was said here that might actually benefit you. And if so, I want to encourage you to go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.